Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. We are going to start with the second embodied principle today from the from the Hermetic laws, excuse me. Um, I'm going to invite everyone before we start though. Let's just do some breathing together just to bring the field here, allow us just to get settled. So invite you, you don't have to do any tapping with this, but go ahead and just close the eyes down. Just drop into the breath. Maybe on that exhale, we let out an audible exhale. Maybe the tongue hangs from the mouth. And with each inhale, I'm just going to invite you to move from the mind into the heart space, allowing for that movement to settle with the exhale, allowing for an invitation to receive in whatever way each is supposed to receive the information today, giving permission for your field, your cells, your muscles, tissues, ligaments to receive what they are intended to receive today. And almost just taking in this next big inhale, holding at the top if you'd like, and just feeling that expansion in the lungs, the front body, the back body, the side bodies. Letting that exhale just release when you feel called to release. If you want to hold at the bottom of the exhale slightly, you're welcome to. Before we open the eyes, I'm just going to invite you to notice a set of doors. Maybe those doors are open, maybe those doors are closed. Maybe once you open them, there's another set of doors. But as we journey inward today, I'm just going to invite you to come back to those doors if and when you feel called. Wonderful. Principle of correspondence. This principle is really summarized by this quote: as above, so below, as below, so above. Again, if at any point during this presentation, if you're watching the recording, you want to pause to be with any of these uh, quotations or slides a little bit longer, please do. Some of them, you know, require a couple reads. If we recall from last week, we covered the principle of mentalism, right? Which really covered that everything in this physical material world begins as an idea, a thought, a mental image in the invisible realm. The outer world is going to act as a mirror for our inner consciousness. We spoke about the mental realm being the realm of cause and the physical realm being the realm of effect, right? The effect is in the cause. We'll touch on that in future lessons as well. To change your life, you must also change your underlying thoughts and beliefs. We talked about minds being viewed as extensions or part of a single infinite universal mind because the universe itself is mental, right? We can influence reality. All is mind. The universe is mental. We're going to cover the second part of that today with this principle of correspondence. And the invitation I started with last week remains the same for this. This lesson is not to challenge anything. It is to fully open, immerse, accept, even if it's just for the time we're together for this, right? Just allow yourself that openness, allow your heart to receive. We'll talk about the heart in a little bit as well. It's beautiful when we get the opportunity to reconceptualize what we've learned about things and to allow ourselves these you know, metaphorical mind melts. Um, yeah, we get to see things in such a different, beautiful way. So what does the principle of correspondence teach? It teaches two main components. Um, within both of those components, excuse me, there is always a direct relationship and harmony between the different planes of existence. We will go over that today, not as in depth as the Kabbalion does. So I do recommend going into the Google Drive when you have time and actually digesting the full teaching of the various planes of existence, but we will touch on them today. The two primary principles in this include the macrocosm and the microcosm, and the inner and outer alignment. So what the macro and the micro says is the universe functions on these repeating patterns. The rules that govern the above are the exact same rules that govern the below, right? As above, so below, as above. There's a mirroring that's happening. And that mirroring we also see in the following: your external circumstances, relationships, environment, success, failures, whatever you want to put a label to, mirrors your internal state in some way, shape, or form. Um, in our previous classes, we've talked a lot about inputs, right? And we did in 1 week talk about beliefs and emotions being those inputs. We've referenced thought processes, from individual thought processes about self to what does that mean about the world and how you relate to others, right? So it's never just one thought or one belief. They're very intricate. Think like a spider web. Everything is connected. And so when we can really appreciate the fullness of that, right, it's no longer, fixing one thing, tending to one thing. It's looking at everything. The great second Hermetic principle embodies the truth that there is a harmony, agreement, and correspondence between the several planes of manifestation, life, and being. This truth is a truth because all that is included in the universe emanates from the same source, and the same laws, principles, and characteristics apply to each unit or combination of units of activity, as each manifests its own phenomena upon its own plane. I want to repeat that last piece one more time. As each manifests its own phenomena upon its own plane. We're going to get into the planes very, like I said, not briefly, but not in as much depth as we would, or as the book does, I should say. So there are three great planes. We have the great physical plane, the great mental plane, and the great spiritual plane. These divisions are more or less artificial and arbitrary, for the truth is that all three divisions are but ascending degrees of the scale of life, the lowest point of which is undifferentiated matter, the physical plane, and the highest point, that of spirit, spiritual plane. And moreover, the different planes shade into each other so that no hard and fast division may be made between the higher phenomena of the physical plane and the lower of the mental, or between the higher of the mental and the lower of the physical. Right? So even within these planes, there's going to be shades, right? We live in this very um, binary, boxed way of thinking. And what this is going to invite us to do is almost see a wave frequency, right? Instead of these boxes and check which one, everything resides as one on the same. And we'll cover this in some of the other laws as we continue, or other principles, excuse me, as we continue. But in recognizing this, if we can see almost like a monochrome of blue, right, and the various shades of blue to get from white to black, it's going to be your invitation to kind of hold as we go over this today. You will kindly remember, however, that the three great planes are not actual divisions, excuse me, of the phenomena of the universe, but merely arbitrary terms used by the Hermetists in order to aid in the thought and study of the various degrees and forms of universal activity and life. The Hermetists subdivide each of the three great planes into seven minor planes, and each of these are also subdivided into seven subplanes, all divisions being more or less arbitrary, shading each into each, and adopted merely for the convenience of scientific study and thought. So on this slide here, we have the seven subdivisions of the physical plane, the seven subdivisions of the mental plane, and not quite the seven subdivisions of the spiritual plane, but we'll get to that in a minute. And what I'm going to invite you to notice and remember is two things. First, each of these seven is then divided into seven, right? So under the plane of matter A, there are seven subdivisions. Under the plane of matter B, seven subdivisions, so on and so forth as we go, right? Again, it allows for um, this blurring to occur, right? There is no stark differentiation. There is no othering. Everything is the same. The all is an all, and all is in the all. I do want to invite something I mentioned last week when I was speaking about this originally being called embodied education and excuse me, my eye itches, the etymology of the word education, I believe was the training of animals. If you look at the mental plane, and again, remembering, right, that there is no division, there is a blur, right, between these planes, and, or I should say, an integration between, and words matter. So when we think about education, right, and the training of animal, you'll see animal as the fifth plane, and you'll see the human mind as the seventh. And so again, just invitations to notice language, to notice where your mind has constructed something, and maybe perhaps an invitation to allow for that deconstruction to occur. The great spiritual plane, I want to speak on the seven minor planes of the great spiritual plane exist beings of whom we may speak as angels, archangels, demigods. On the lower minor planes dwell those great souls whom we call masters and adepts. Above them come the great hierarchies of the angelic hosts, unthinkable to man, and above those, the gods. The plane of the human mind and its seven subdivisions comprises those manifestations of life and mentality which are common to man in his various grades, degrees, and divisions. In this connection, we wish to point out the fact that the average man of today occupies but the fourth subdivision of the human mind, the plane of the human mind, and only the most intelligent have crossed the borders of the fifth subdivision. It has taken the race millions of years to reach this stage, and it will take many more years for the race to move on to the sixth and seventh subdivisions and beyond. The sixth subdivision is referred to as Superman, and the seventh subdivision is referred to as the Overman. Passing on from the great mental plane to the great spiritual plane, what shall we say? How can we explain these higher states of being, life and mind, to minds as yet unable to grasp and understand the higher subdivisions of the plane of the human mind? The task is impossible. We can speak only in the most general terms. How may light be described to a mind born blind, excuse me? How sugar to a man who has never tasted anything sweet? How harmony to one born deaf? And when I reference these quotes, it's not to, you know, minimize our existence or anything like, but to refer back, right? Even that first teaching and that invitation of there are going to be things that are unknowable and it's okay. There are going to be things that we cannot mentally grasp. There are going to be things that science is not able to show us. And there's a beauty and a miracle in that when the unexplained gets to be just beautiful. The life of these beings so far transcend ours that we cannot even think of the details of the same. Oh, typo there, I apologize. Their minds so far transcend ours that to them we scarcely seem to think, and our mental processes seem almost akin to material processes. The matter of which their forms are composed is of the highest planes of matter. Nay, some are even said to be clothed in pure energy. What may be said of such beings, referencing the great spiritual plane? In conclusion, we would again remind you that according to the principle of correspondence that embodies the truth, as above, so below, as below, so above, all of the seven Hermetic principles fully operate on all of the many planes. This will be significant in the next coming slides. Physical, mental, and spiritual. The principle of mental substance, of course, applies to all the planes, for all are held in the mind of the all. The principle of correspondence manifests in all, for there is a correspondence, harmony, and agreement between the several planes. The principle of vibration manifests on all planes. In fact, the very difference that go to make the planes arise from vibration, as we explained. The other principles that we will cover in the next couple weeks. So the principle of vibration, the principle of polarity, the principle of rhythm, the principle of cause and effect, and the principle of gender. All of these laws move through all the planes. The principle of mentalism moves through all the planes. So when we consider this as above, so below, as below, so above, each, we'll call it realm, right? Each plane, whatever exists there is going to exist in other places. And again, I invite in, we'll get there. We'll get there. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but when we consider this to be an extension of the first course, right? What are we deconditioning within ourselves that lets us remember our true inherent beauty? As we proceed with our consideration of the remaining principles, we will see even more clearly the truth of the universal nature of this great principle of correspondence. So as we continue our journey over these after today, these next 5 weeks, you will see how all of these principles are so entwined together. Bless you. Bless you. And just how they interact on every plane. Going back to the quote from earlier today, each plane is going to manifest, right? These principles differently. It's going to look different for everything, but these are always going to be at play. And so I want to go into integrating these first two principles and go into some quotes from the Kabbalion. So that first principle of mentalism, the second principle of correspondence, right? When we say the mind is all, the universe is mental. We're gonna go into a couple quotes here that will hopefully tie these two together. The universe is mental, held in the mind of the all. This is where we left off last week. The all is spirit, but what is spirit? The question cannot be answered for the reason that its definition is practically that of the all, which cannot be explained or defined. Spirit is simply a name that men give to the highest conception of infinite living mind. It means the real essence. Spirit transcends our understanding, and we use the term merely that we may think or speak of the all. For the purposes of thought and understanding, we are justified in thinking of spirit as infinite living mind, at the same time acknowledging that we cannot fully understand it. We must either do this or stop thinking of the matter altogether. Let us now proceed to a consideration of the nature of the universe. Yes, as a whole and in its parts. What is the universe? I'm going to move this guy down. Excuse me. Bring this down here. We have seen that there is nothing outside of the all. Then is the universe the all? No, this cannot be, because the universe seems to be made up of many and is constantly changing. And in other ways, it does not measure up to the ideas that we are compelled to accept regarding the all as stated in our last lesson. If the universe exists at all, or seems to exist, it must proceed in some way from the all. It must be a creation of the all. Remember those three rules of the all, principle one, that we talked about under the principle of mentalism last week. We're going to see that come into play here. But if something can never come from nothing, from what could the all have created it? Some philosophers have answered this question by saying that the all created the universe from itself, that is, from the being and substance of the all. But this will not do, for the all cannot be subtracted from, nor divided, as we have seen. And then again, if this be so, would not each particle in the universe be aware of its being the all? The all could not lose its knowledge of itself, nor actually become an atom or blind force or lowly living thing. But what indeed is the universe, if it be not the all, not yet created by the all, having separated itself into fragments? What else can it be? Of what else can it be made? We find here that the principle of correspondence comes to our aid. The old Hermetic axiom, again, as above, so below, may be pressed into service at this point. On his own plane of being, how does man create? So again, if we're going to use this law of correspondence, right, this what is in the macro is in the micro, what is in the micro is in the macro. How does man create? Well, first, he may create by making something out of outside materials, but this will not do, for there are no materials outside of the all which with it may create, right? We covered this last week with it being an isolated container. Man procreates or reproduces his kind, which is self-multiplication, but this will not do because the all cannot transfer or subtract, a portion of itself, nor can it reproduce or multiply itself. Is there no third way in which man creates? Yes, there is. He creates mentally, and in doing so, he uses no outside materials, nor does he reproduce himself, and yet his spirit pervades the mental creation. We are going to get into brainwave states towards the end of this. So if you have a thought of what mental creation is, go ahead and just write that down if you feel called. The universe and all it contains is a mental creation of the all. Verily, indeed, all is mind. So again, we see this creation of man, right, in the mind. Brainwave states are inputs, and like I said, we'll cover that shortly. Something just like beautifully just clicked that I didn't put two and two together, but there's so many ways that this stuff just comes full circle, and it's so beautiful. So in order to understand the macro, you go into the micro, because what is in the micro is in the macro, and what is in the macro is in the micro. The all is in the all, and all is in the all. So let's look at this from an application standpoint. That first piece, macrocosm and the microcosm. If the universe and all it contains is a mental creation of the all, are we not part of the all? This is not a quote in the book. This is inquiry. What are we invited to see that exists in other planes and we have been taught exists differently on ours? In what ways has Western colonialism culture changed how something was taught, thus creating conflicting ideas and possibly encouraging the student to stop such studies because of frustration? If you recall, one of the quotes from the beginning that we talked about last week is the hope that the metabolism and digestion of these principles allows for competing ideas to come together, right? For this harmony to exist that the principle of correspondence speaks to, existing on every single plane. So we're going to cover these images one by one. Up here on the left-hand corner, the golden tree with the green, that is the tree of life. Below that, diagonally, that is placenta after birth. I want you just to notice the imagery. Notice how similar those are. Below that, we see a leaf, right? All the veins and arteries of a leaf. I'm going to invite you to turn over your hand and really look at it. Don't just look at it, but really look at it. Notice each line, notice each movement, and go back to that leaf. It's beautiful when we see just this principle at play, even in our own makeup. Going to that top picture, the left side is a lung. We see I don't know the exact scientific term, so I apologize, but the branches, right? The extensions of the lungs, I believe they're called bronchioles. Um, and then we see the tree, right? Again, we see these patterns mirroring. Below that, this is going to be the branches of the river that extend, right? So again, we see the imagery in the lung, the tree, how the rivers uh, extend from its primary source. On the right, we have a picture of wood burning, and to the right of that, we have a cell. The burning of wood forms oxidation. We also see that when iron rusts, excuse me. And though I don't have a picture of iron rusting, I wanted to speak to another way in which we see this because this oxidation is very similar to the oxidation that occurs for the creation of ATP. So hold that for a moment. Very different processes, right? Again, that remembering an invitation of what we spoke about a little bit ago. It's going to manifest differently on every single plane. Within the 3, within the 7, within the sub 7, it's going to look different, but it exists. Below that, the back picture is lightning. The front picture are neural circuitries. And so the same electrochemical principles that drive lightning strikes are used by our nervous system. It's how our cells communicate. They're electrical impulses. Um, when we even think about the heart, right? The heart is not, it's not a pump. I mean, it pumps, but if we were to change our understanding of what the heart is to an electrical oscillator, talk about brainwave states in a couple slides, everything is energy. Everything is electrical. And I would invite you, just as you see these images, right? Even the leaf to the hand, excuse me, drop back into that heart space and just notice what was released, what just shifted, what moved, what opened. It's so beautiful when we actually get to see these pieces because again, it looks different on every single plane and it's going to look different. Even the cover of the book, right? Because they don't judge a book by its cover. One thing I want to touch on, going back to that inquiry of what have we learned, right? What have we been taught about something? Um, our colonial culture is relatively new. Uh, will we teach again before the 4th of July? Yeah, we'll teach probably once or twice. Um, I see a lot of signs in the various neighborhoods I walk and live in, 250th anniversary. It's not a long time, right? These principles that we're studying are ancient Egyptian. These things have been around since the beginning of time. So what's truth that we've been taught differently? And so my one of the examples, excuse me, that I'm going to invite to explore today is ether. In the West and early physics, excuse me, ether was considered to be a hypothetical invisible substance believed to fill all of empty space. Think about that word, empty space. What have we been taught about empty, void, space? We'll see we're again, right, with this principle of correspondence, hold in your back pocket. What we see in the macro is in the micro. What is in the micro is in the macro. It was said to be invisible and it let light travel through a vacuum, excuse me. In 1887, an experiment done by Michelson and Morley debunked this theory, leading modern science to conclude that aether doesn't exist. And I put that in direct quotes because that came from Google. And you may ask, ether and aether, what is the difference? What came after was Einstein's theory of relativity. We'll cover that at some point, maybe. It felt important. It doesn't feel as important now. If we go back or we go to a different framework, ether is aether, and it is one of the five fundamental elements that make up the physical body and the universe. And if we go even farther back in Greek mythology, it refers to the pure, glowing upper air breathed by the gods. If it exists on one plane, it exists on them all. I just want to sit and hold this slide for a minute. Notice what shifts in your body. You don't need to know why. Maybe read this slide again. Just invite and notice what moves, what turns, what changes, what transmutes. We even covered that last week, right? Transmutation happens all around us. When we have an effect in the body, don't be surprised by that anymore. Let the things you learn be for that effect to happen in the most radiant way possible. So I want to just highlight a couple other philosophies, practices that speak to ether or aether, right? If we're gonna substitute in that new definition of air breathed, upper air, golden air, excuse me, breathed by the gods. Kundalini yoga and Indian philosophy, the five tattvas are the foundational cosmic elements that make up the physical universe and the human body. Purifying and balancing these elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, is considered essential for healing, stabilizing the mind, and allowing Kundalini to ascend. Hindu cosmology, known as Akasha, also speaks to ether as the most subtle of the five elements. Rather than empty nothingness, it is the all-pervading substratum of the universe that gives rise to all other matter and carries sound. I said that last piece, and then I thought of Katie, who will potentially watch this later. Um, I believe this is the Bible reference. I'm not 100% sure because it's not in front of me, but when I've just read that and carry sound word, right? In the beginning, there was the word. What is word? Word is sound. What is sound? It's frequency. All right, and so we get to have this um, transformation of information that again allows us to remember these beautiful things, not here, but here. In Buddhist philosophy, space, akasa, is treated similarly as the medium that accommodates all form. And in the traditional Japanese five-element system, Godai, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, so I apologize because I probably said that wrong. The final and highest element is Ku, which represents the realm of spirit, energy, and unmanifested potential. Unmanifested, meaning it hasn't come into physical form yet. For those that have read Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself or anything from Joe Dispenza, this ties into that work, right? There is a realm in which all the possibilities exist because even in this law of correspondence, right? All the possibilities exist. It's just how does that manifest on a different plane? When you really start to see these principles, I mean, even just as I say that, like, gosh, yeah, it's beautiful. I just feel so much, and there's even my own mind melts a little bit. This is the beauty of speaking, And I thank you all for the opportunity of that, because hearing things, right, have a different resonance than just reading it or putting it together. So I wanted to invite in this photo. Yeah, we've got plenty of time. This is Brofenbrenner's ecological model, and if you've worked with me, there's an 80% chance that you have seen this photo before. And I love images like this because as I learn new things, the images they change as far as how I explain them. In a traditional, psychotherapy lens, someone would explain this image as the child is in the middle, is influenced by the various aspects of the microsystem. We see the meso, the exo, the macro. What's there is internal, what's internal is external, and the chronos system as well. Um, and so my invitation, right, typically in therapy, what we focus on is the family. What's literally happening in the setting, right? How do I fix it? How do I change it? What do I do? If you see the arrows that move between, right? The chrono and the macro, and the macro and the exo, and even the exo and the meso into the micro. I want you guys to just kind of take this image and look at it through the principle of correspondence. Look at these as various planes, right? What exists out there is going to exist in here, and what exists in here is going to exist out there. What have we been taught in this macro system, though, that exists within us that maybe actually keeps us from knowing what is in the chrono system or the truth of that macro system? Excuse me. Inquiry, and if you want to pause or even go back, you're welcome to. How do the labels you apply to things prohibit the law of correspondence from occurring? If you answer, I don't know, or pause the video. Feel into that question. How do the labels you apply to things prohibit the law of correspondence from occurring? There are so many ways that we are taught things that prohibit us from really, really, really embodying this principle. Can you allow yourself to start to see them and change them? Going into the second piece, right? We just covered the macro and the micro, going into that inner and outer alignment now. Your external circumstances, right? This is from the beginning that we talked about the core teachings within this principle are a mirror of your internal state. If you want to change your outer world, you must also change the beliefs and emotions within you. How do we change internal belief states? Through meditation. And the reason for that is because meditation is going to be one of the most direct ways to influence brainwave states. Brainwave states, I want to speak to this before going into the 4 different brainwave states. Brainwave states are inputs for various metabolic functions. You'll see as we go through each one. And various inputs are going to create various brainwave states. So if you recall, the effect is in the cause. Meditation is one way to shift these brainwave states. There are other inputs that can also shift them. Shifting meaning going from beta to alpha to theta to delta, and going from data to theta to alpha to beta, excuse me. Meditation, mindfulness practices are going to let that hurts move down. Things like caffeine, overthinking, taking in contradictory information, right? Meaning maybe you're wearing sunglasses outside, so your eyes aren't receiving the same inputs as your skin. That's going to create oxidative stress, right? So if you go back to those 9 weeks and you really, really dive into all of the weeks actually, but particularly, right, I would say week 1, 2, and 3, you're going to see a number of ways in which even just our interfacing or lack of interfacing with light is going to create certain stress states in the body. And so getting into these brainwave states, we have beta. This is the active, get things done. This is characterized by a high frequency wave, 12 to 30 hertz. Beta is going to dominate when we're awake, alert, engaged. It's going to be very active in analytical thinking, problem solving, focused conversation, right? What we're doing right now. While ideal for productivity, prolonged beta states can lead to stress and anxiety. What is stress? Oxidative stress. How does that form? A number of ways that we talked about in week 1 and 2 and 3, and 6, 7, 8, 9. But really, the process of oxidative stress is in week 1 and 2 of last module. While ideal, excuse me, for productivity, yes, I mentioned it can lead to stress and anxiety. This state elevates metabolic demand, right, and cortisol, which directly contributes to oxidative stress. Below beta, we have alpha, a resting, calm state of consciousness characterized by electrical oscillations between 8 to 12 hertz. I mentioned electrical oscillations because our heart facilitates this, right? If you think about these brainwave states, there's going to be a physiological effect. More pumping, less pumping, higher oscillation, lower oscillation, right? Not to say one is good or bad. We don't need to put those labels to it. And if all of these things are inputs, right, that we're constantly responding to, are we experiencing the output that we're hoping to obtain? So we have, again, the 8 to 12 hertz. It represents alpha, represents a bridge between active, high stress thinking, those beta waves, and deeper relaxation or sleep, which we see in theta and delta. Theta is going to be this relaxed state occurring between 4 to 8 hertz, often occurring during light sleep, deep meditation, or the moments right before waking up. I forget the term for this, and I will find it and speak to it next week, but I think it's hypnagogia state. Excuse me, is that right before you fall asleep and right before you wake up? And I've had some very interesting experiences in those states, as many people have shared with me they have as well. It's a gateway to the subconscious, links us to our intuition, creativity, emotional processing. I would even say it links us to the unseen world. It lets us tap into a frequency, a wave state that allows us to communicate on a different level of consciousness. And then we have delta, and the slowest oscillations occurring between 0.5 to 4 hertz. They are primarily associated with deep dreamless stages of non-REM and are essential for physical restoration, immune function, and memory consolidation. This is part of the reason when we talked about circadian rhythm last module, the importance of that, the importance of working with light and darkness and creating lifestyle shifts outside of what we have been taught culturally to do so that we can take full responsibility for the metabolism of our energy. We can take full responsibility for the physical restoration that happens at night, for the immune system and function to keep us alive and healthy, right? For our brain to be clear and sharp. I don't think I said it in this training, but in the last module, not last week, but the last series, the brain weighs 2 to 3% of the body's weight. And it takes, maybe it's 2 to 3 pounds, excuse me, but it takes 20 to 30% of the body's available energy. And so if the body is not fully creating ATP, if it's not able to do the processes that it inherently knows how to do because your innate wisdom is just that freaking smart, we're going to have symptoms that the West will offer medication and solution for, but don't actually fix the problem. We're going to head into our immersion. So if you haven't already grabbed pen and paper, go ahead, pause the video, grab some pen and paper. I'm going to take a little sip of tea here. Now, for all of these, you're always welcome to change the intention. Um, am means remain. So the intention that I set for today is I remain aether, meaning I remain part of this golden, airy life force breath that is available to the gods. It's what happens on the macro, happens on the micro. If you would like to change the intention to something else that speaks to you in working with this intention of the principle of correspondence, you are absolutely welcome to. My invitation is just going to be to write that intention down. And when you have that intention written down, what's the image? I am going to, before we do this, escape full and stop screen share so that I can actually mute myself during the tapping, and then we will finish with the daily reflection like we did last time. So we'll probably do another, yeah, probably 5 sets, 5 to 7 sets. We'll see as we go. So go ahead and bring the eyes down. If you want to again use the breath just to move that line of vision from the external to the internal. Maybe we are returning to those doors. The second I close my eyes, that visual came up very deep. So that's where I'm going to start today. You can hold the image at the crown, at the third eye, at the heart space, whatever you feel called to. When you're ready, go ahead and notice your image, notice your intention. Go ahead and cross the arms. When you're ready, go into a fast set of tapping. And take a deep breath in when you feel ready to stop. Feel ready, moving over to pen and paper, writing down what you noticed in that set. If you would like more time to write, I invite you to pause the video. For those that are ready, notice what you noticed from that last set. We're going to go into the next one. Deep breath in when you are ready to stop. Let the breath out however you would like it to be let out. There's a lot of yawning for me happening today. Take that as a just something to notice. When you're ready, I invite you to go to pen and paper, write down what you noticed from that last set. I'm going to invite you before going into this next set. Again, if you would like some more time to write, feel free to pause the video, take a couple moments. Going into this next set, though, I'm going to invite you to just notice what you noticed in that last set and just how that lands in your body now. What has changed? What subtle shift are we becoming aware of within ourselves? Let's go ahead and notice that for this next set. Deep breath in when you are ready to stop. Moving to pen and paper when you feel ready and writing down what you noticed in that last set. I'm going to share a couple potential recommendations. Go with what your heart intuition feels called to follow for this next set. You can notice what landed with you from the last set for this next one. Maybe you go back to the intention and notice the intention in relationship to the last set. Maybe you go back to the first set and you see the through line Maybe there's a story building. Maybe there's something that as you notice these elements, you see something different within it. Maybe you notice all of it, the intention, the journey, and you invite in the remembering of that. What is on the micro? What is in the micro is on the macro, and what is in the macro is in the micro. Whatever it is you want to notice, go ahead and notice that for this next set. Deep breath in when you're ready to stop. When you're ready, moving to pen and paper. Even if, something weird came through and you're like, my mind started thinking, write it down. You'll see something in it. I'll just say that that's what happened to me in that set. I started thinking. But when I observed my thoughts, I was able to see in that last set cultural conditioning that kept me from that last set. And then a whole bunch of other information came in. So sometimes the thing that we would push away actually always has an invitation for us. This process is so potent when we work with it on literally this level of receiving and trusting that everything is in its own process. So when you're ready, go ahead and write down what you noticed from that last set. I'm going to do one more set. We'll see what comes after that. For this final set, think of it like final set in yoga. If there is something, yeah, specific that you want to notice, if they're, we're going to stay away from questions. No questions this one. I mean, if you want to ask a question, go for it, but my recommendation would be not to inquire. Just to notice, be with, allow what is ready to come forth to come forth. This is where we get to practice being okay with the unknown. So when you're ready, you can notice what you noticed from that last set. You can notice the intention. You can notice, maybe something through sets 1 through 4, whatever it is you want to notice for this last set. Go for it. Deep breath in when you are ready to stop. When you are ready, feel free to move to pen and paper. After you finish writing, I'm going to ask you to just go back to the intention and the image and just look at your own protocol. Just look at what you connected to. Something so beautiful about, excuse the funny face that I made. So beautiful about these tappings. It's not even just the information that comes in. Those are the inputs, right? And we just talked about brainwave states. We just moved ourselves out of beta. We literally moved ourselves into a different state. What this tapping actually does is it facilitates the eye movement and the brainwave states of non-rapid eye movement, right? That REM when you're not sleeping. Um, I can't even remember if it's what the N stands for. See? These these are the opportunities to give ourselves a medicine without realizing that that is medicine, right? After today, I hope you see it as that. Um, there's so many ways that we can create the inputs. There's so many ways that the effects get to be in the cause, and we get to choose those causes intentionally. Go ahead, review your protocol, and notice what stands out. Feel free to take a couple more minutes to write. I'm going to go back to screen sharing and just pull up the final pieces of our lesson for today. Beautiful. Reflection and journal prompts. I'll wait just a moment since I just pulled it up. For those that want to just take another minute to write. And again, these reflections and journal prompts they're just ideas. You may feel called to use different ones. Please do. For daily practice, right? You can choose a situation from the day that frustrates you or inspires you and inquire back, right? As we work with the law of correspondence this week, or the principle of correspondence, excuse me. I'm trying not to say law because the acronym of law is land, air, and water, and it has to do with jurisdiction and all these legal aspects I will speak to on one day. So I'm really trying to stick with the word principle. So if you hear me go back and forth, that's why. So, in working with this principle of correspondence, inquire, right? If you choose that daily practice of choosing a situation that frustrates or inspires you, inquire, what might this be reflecting back to me? What recurring pattern am I noticing here? Where do I notice this pattern in my life? Where do I notice this pattern in the world around me? Where else did I see the principle of correspondence at today? I'll go back to that last slide. Next week, we're going to cover the principle of vibration. Again, we'll have very similar setups where we will go over, quick review. What is the principle, integration of them, where we see it, and then practice. So the remaining weeks will have a very similar flow, pulling in these new principles and allowing us to see how they present themselves in the various planes of our world. I'm going to go ahead and stop screen sharing here. If you have any questions, you are absolutely welcome to reach out. I'm going to put in the Telegram group a reflection for this principle probably sometime tomorrow. Make sure to drink plenty of water. Maybe go outside, touch some grass or some soil, be in the sun. Maybe go near some water if you'd like. Just listen to what your body needs while you're in this state of receptivity. As always, thank you for being present, allowing me to be here to learn and teach. And I'll see you when I see you.